1001 Arabian Nights. Long ago a famous dynasty ruled Persia. Sultan Sharia was a great king who ruled the kingdom. He had a wife whom he loved more than everything in the world, and his greatest happiness was to surround her with splendor. But after several years he found that she has not been loyal to the Sultan. The Sultan was not able to bear this. He killed his wife. From that day, he made his Grand Minister bring in a girl, get her married in the evening, and then he would kill her the next day. The whole kingdom was shocked at this attitude. The Grand Master himself was a father of 2 daughters, of whom the elder was called Shahirazada and the younger Dinarzade. Shahirazada was highly intelligent and extremely beautiful. One day, Shahirazada went to talk to her father.
Father, I have a favor to ask. Will you grant it to me?
I couldn't refuse you anything. Tell me, my dear.
I am determined to stop this barbarous practice of the Sultan, and to save the girls from this awful fate.
It would be an excellent thing to do. But how do you propose to do it?
It is you who have to provide the Sultan daily with a new wife, and I request you to permit me to marry him.
Have you lost your senses? Don't you know your fate if you marry the Sultan?
Yes, my father, I know. I will be dead. And I am not afraid to think of it. If I fail, my death will be a glorious one, and if I succeed, I shall have done a great service to my country.
The next day, the Grand Minister offers her daughter's hand in marriage to the Sultan. The Sultan receives the news with the greatest astonishment.
Let there be no mistake. Remember, you will have to take her life yourself. If at all you refuse, I swear that your head shall be cut off too.
My Sultan, whatever the cost, I will obey you. Meanwhile, in daytime, Shahirazada asked her sister to do a favor.
Dinarzade, I am all set to marry the Sultan. I want you to help me after the marriage. I will request the Sultan to take you with me, to which I think he would agree. Your only job is to wake me up before sunrise and say, "Sister, if you were not asleep, tell me one of your interesting stories." Then I will start telling stories. Hopefully I will save my execution.
That evening, Sultan and Shahirazada got married. When Sultan first saw her, he was mesmerized by her beauty. But seeing her eyes full of tears, he asked,
"What happened, my Sultana?"
My Sultan, I have a sister who loves me as dearly as I love her. Grant me the favor of allowing her to sleep this night in the same room. As it is my last night, we shall be together.
Sultan agreed, and Dinarzade was called to the palace. And just as decided before sunrise, Dinarzade wakes Shahirazada as promised.
My dear sister, if you are not sleeping, tell me one of your charming stories. It is the last time that I shall have the pleasure of hearing your interesting stories. My Sultan, permit me to do as my sister asks.
Willingly.
And so Shahirazada began her stories. However, she stops the story in the middle, so that he will be excited to hear the rest the following night. The next evening, she finishes that story and then begins another, following the same pattern for 1001 nights, until Shahryar has a change of heart and forgoes her execution.
A Wise Woman. A tale from Guinea, West Africa. It was a beautiful African morning. Children were playing happily in the village streets. The women were washing clothes in the river and singing songs about lazy husbands. The chief listened to the two men sitting in front of him.
Great chief, the man next to me is a thief,
said the older man.
Is that really so?
Replied the great chief.
Then tell me, what did he steal from you?
one of my sheep,
answered the old man.
And what is your answer to that?
The great chief asked the younger man.
Why steal sheep, great chief?
Replied the young man.
I have lots of them. If I need more sheep, I buy them. I don't steal them from other people. He's the thief, not me.
The great chief looked at the far mountains and smiled. Then he looked at both men. Was the young one lying? He wasn't sure, but the old man didn't have the look of a thief. This was a difficult problem. He wasn't going to find the answer in just a few minutes. But the great chief liked problems like this more than any other. It took some time to find the answer. People came to him from very far away to ask him to be the judge of their problems. The great chief liked this also.
I have a question for both of you,
said the great chief.
The person who finds the solution will keep the sheep. Go home and think about this question, and come back only when you know the answer. What's the fastest thing in the world? Don't come back until you have the solution.
The two men left the great chief's house. The old man was sad. How could he find the answer to such a difficult question? When he got home, he told the question to his daughter, Zia. She was a beautiful, happy woman who liked helping others. She was young, but she was also very wise.
I know the answer, Father,
she said.
It's time.
The old man went back to the great chief's house. The great chief was surprised.
You're back again. Not even 1 hour has passed, and you already have an answer to my question?
Yes, great chief.
Replied the old man.
It wasn't so difficult,
answered the old man.
It always goes too fast. There's never enough time for all the things that we want to do. And when we want more time to do something, it goes faster.
The great chief was surprised. The old man's answer was even better than his solution.
Who helped you to find the answer? Who gave you these words?
Asked the great chief.
They're my words. No one helped me.
If that's not true, I'll punish you,
said the great chief. The old man was too afraid to go on with his story.
It was my daughter, Zia. She's a very wise young woman, and she gave me the words,
he said.
She must be very wise,
thought the great chief.
Very well. You have found the answer, and so you shall keep the sheep. And now that this is all finished, I think that I'd like to meet your daughter.
The next day, the old man brought his daughter Zia to meet the great chief. They sat at the great chief's table and had a big lunch. Chicken, rice, fruit, and a drink made from palm juice. During lunch, they talked about the young man who stole the sheep, and about how difficult it was to be a good judge. The great chief enjoyed the lunch very much. While he talked about this and that with Zia, he felt so happy that he wanted to sing and dance. Was it the palm juice drink, or the wise and beautiful young woman looking into his eyes? But time always passes too fast, and soon it was time for them to leave. The great chief saw Zia every day, and his love for her grew and grew.
You're a wise and beautiful woman. I'd really like to marry you,
he said.
Me too,
replied Zia, laughing. And so they married. The great chief was very happy, but he was also worried about having a wise wife. He didn't want her to help him with the problems that people brought him. He liked being the great chief who was a wise judge. He didn't want people to start talking about the great chief's very wise wife.
Everything in my house belongs to you,
he said to her the day after they were married.
But I ask only one thing from you. Never try to help with the problems that people bring me. If you do, you'll stop being my wife. I'm saying this to you only once.
Zia listened without looking at the great chief. When he finished, she smiled. Zia and her husband were happy, and life went well for a time. The great chief listened to people's problems as before. Zia was busy with the house and the animals. In the evenings, he told her about the problems of the day, and she usually agreed with his answers. But one day, 2 little boys went to see the great chief about a cow. Each boy said that it was his cow. The great chief gave them a very difficult question to answer. Zia knew which boy was telling the truth, because she often saw him in the fields with the family's cow. When he walked past her that afternoon, he was crying. Zia spoke to him.
Tell me, little boy, what's the matter?
She asked him.
The great chief gave us a question that I can never answer,
he said sadly.
What did he ask you? His question was, what's the biggest thing in the world?
Zia knew that she mustn't help the boy, but the answer was easy for her and very difficult for him. And he was telling the truth about the cow.
Go back to the great chief now,
said Zia.
Tell him the answer in these words. It is air. Air is all around us. When we walk, in front of us, there is only air and more air. When we look up at the sky, there is air as far as we can see.
The little boy went to see the great chief. He said the same words that Zia told him. This time, the great chief wasn't surprised. He was very angry.
Who helped you find this answer?
He shouted.
These words are too wise for a young boy. Who gave them to you?
They're my words, great chief, said the boy. No one helped me to find the answer.
If this isn't the truth, I'll punish you,
said the great chief. The boy was afraid.
It was your wife, Zia,
he said in the end. The great chief was very angry with his wife. That evening, he spoke to her.
Didn't I tell you that everything which I have belongs to you? You have done the one thing, the only thing that I asked you not to do. Now take what belongs to you and go back to your father's home.
before I go, can I make you one last meal? Then I'll take what belongs to me and go.
Yes,
answered the great chief.
make what you want to eat. Take what you want to take. Just be sure that you're not still here tomorrow.
Zia cooked the great chief's favorite meal, chicken with rice and vegetables. While he ate, she gave him a strong drink made from palm juice. She gave him many cups of it. At the end of the meal, the great chief lay down and slept. With her family's help, Zia carried the great chief to her father's home. They put him on a bed, and he stayed in a deep sleep all night. In the morning, a great voice woke everyone in the house.
Where am I? What am I doing here?
Shouted the great chief. Zia ran into the room, laughing.
You said that I could take anything that I wanted from your house. I wanted you, and so I took you.
You are truly wise.
Smiled the great chief.
Come, let's go back to our home together. Only a stupid man would send away so wise a woman.
And you, my great chief, are not a stupid man,
said his clever wife.
Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. Ali Baba was a woodcutter. He was from Persia in the Middle East. One day he was at work in the woods when he saw 40 men on 40 black horses. They stopped near a huge rock. They had 40 big, heavy brown sacks on their backs. Ali Baba watched the men as they got off their horses. A tall man walked to the rock and said, "Open sesame!" Ali Baba looked and looked again. Something amazing happened. The rock opened. Behind the rock was a cave. The 40 men went into the cave with their sacks. Later, when the men came out of the cave, they didn't have their sacks. "Close sesame," said the tall man, and the rock closed. 40 men got on their horses and went away. Ali Baba went to the rock. "Open sesame," he said. The rock opened, and inside the cave there were hundreds of sacks and wooden boxes. Ali Baba opened a sack and it was full of diamonds. He opened another sack and it was full of gold coins. He opened a box and it was full of silver. He opened another box and it was full of beautiful jewels. These 40 men are thieves, thought Ali. I'm going to take some of these coins home for my wife. He put some gold coins into his bag and went out of the cave. "Close, sesame," he said. The rock closed, and he went home. Ali Baba's wife, Nasreen, was in the kitchen. Ali Baba told her about the 40 thieves and the treasure in the cave. "This is wonderful news," said Nasreen. "Can we take more money and buy a new house and new clothes?" "Yes, but we mustn't tell anyone," said Ali. "The 40 thieves are very dangerous men." Ali's brother, Kasim, was outside the kitchen. He opened the door. "Tell me where the cave is," he shouted. "You must tell me, or I'm going to go and look for it myself." "No, don't do that," said Ali. "Go into the woods. There's a huge rock near the big baobab tree. The rock opens when you say, 'Open sesame,' and closes when you say, 'Close sesame.'" Kasim went to the rock. "Open sesame," he said. He went into the cave and the rock closed. "This is amazing," thought Kasim. "Gold, silver, beautiful jewels." He had 3 big sacks with him and filled them with gold and silver and jewels. He stood in front of the rock and said, "Open wheat." But the rock didn't open. He said, "Open corn." But the rock didn't open. "Oh, what is the right word?" he thought. Kasim was angry. He couldn't remember the word. He sat down to think, but suddenly he heard horses. The 40 thieves were outside the cave. "Look, a horse! Someone's in our cave! He can't have our treasure! He must die!" The next morning, Kasim's wife, Zila, went to Ali Baba. "Kasim didn't come home last night. Do you know where he is?" she asked. Ali told Zila about the cave. "Please go to the cave. The thieves are dangerous men. They'll kill him," she said. Ali went to the rock. It was closed, but he heard a noise. "Kasim, are you there?" he said. "Yes, I'm here. Help me. I'm hurt." "Open sesame," he said, and the rock opened. Kasim was on the floor. He couldn't walk. "The thief said I must die, but I didn't die," he said. "You didn't die, but you're hurt. Let's go home now, and the doctor can come to the house later tonight." The next afternoon, the thieves went back to the cave. "He isn't here," said the tall man. "We must find him. He was hurt. We must find the doctor who helped him." The tall man found the doctor's house. He was angry. "Where's the man you helped yesterday? Where's his house?" he asked. "I don't know," said the doctor. "It was dark, and I couldn't see the road or the houses." "Then take me to the house tonight when it's dark," said the tall man. The doctor took the tall man to Ali's house later that night, and the tall man painted a white cross on the door. "Now I know where Kasim and his family live. They must all die, and I've got a plan." The tall man went to the market and bought 39 big oil pots. "Put the pots on your horses, then hide inside them," he told the thieves. I'm going to Ali Baba's house, and you'll be in the pots. We'll kill them all tonight when they are asleep. That evening, he went to Ali Baba's house. Good evening. I'm an oil merchant from India, and I'm very tired, he said. Have you got a room where I can sleep and a place for my horses? Of course. Welcome to my home, said Ali. Zila was in the kitchen with Nasreen. That man isn't Indian. He's Persian. I don't like him. Let's go and look at the pots on his horses. They went out of the house into the garden. Everything was very quiet. Suddenly, they heard a man's voice. When are we going to kill Kasim and Ali Baba and their wives? When they're asleep, said another voice. The women looked at the pots on the horses. 39 pots in their garden, 39 men in the pots, and 1 man in the house. The 40 thieves! Quickly, open the gate! Nasreen opened the gate. Shoo, shoo, go away! Shoo, shoo, go away! They shouted at the horses. The horses ran out of the garden. They ran and they ran and they ran. They ran into the desert and never came back. The tall man went into the garden when everyone was sleeping. His horses weren't there. His pots weren't there. His men weren't there. He ran out of the garden. He ran into the desert. In the morning, Kasim and Ali Baba woke up early and went into the garden. This is very strange. The oil merchant isn't here, and his horses aren't here. Where are they? You men are very silly. Yes, very silly. The oil merchant from India wasn't an oil merchant from India. No, he was the leader of the 40 thieves. Where are the 40 thieves now? They ran into the desert, and let's hope they'll never come back. Tomorrow you can go and get the treasure, and we'll give some to everyone in the village.
The Basket of Eggs. A Tale from Egypt. Musa really didn't like being poor. He lived in a small house in a small village next to the River Nile in Egypt. When there was work, he worked on farms, and when there was no work, he watched the waters of the River Nile. Sometimes he dreamt that he was in a beautiful boat going slowly up the river to Cairo. He dreamt of a new life there. A big house, lots of money, beautiful clothes, and lots of food. One day, when there was no work and he was tired of looking at the Nile, he thought,
Enough is enough.
He decided to leave for Cairo and become rich. While he was walking down the street, he met his old friend Abdullah.
Abdullah, I'm so happy to see you before I go.
He said.
Before you go? Where are you going?
Asked his friend with great surprise.
I'm going to Cairo to become rich,
replied Musa excitedly.
How are you going to become rich?
Asked his friend.
I'm going to...
Musa began, but he wasn't really very sure of his plan. Putting his hand on his friend's arm.
I'm going to help you. Come with me.
Abdullah pulled Musa down a little street and took him to Hafsa's house. In front of the house, there was a big garden with many chickens running around in it. Everyone knew that Hafsa's eggs were the best in the village.
Good morning, Hafsa,
said Abdullah.
We need 200 eggs in a big basket.
Why are we buying eggs?
Asked Musa.
With these eggs, you can go to the big market in Cairo. There you'll sell them for good money. Then you'll buy something else and sell it in a different place for more money. You'll buy and sell, and soon you'll be rich. Then you can give me back the money for the eggs, and perhaps a little more for helping you to start your business.
Abdullah gave the eggs to Musa, and they walked through more little streets until they came to the Nile. They found a boat which was going to Cairo.
Here's some money for the journey, and Cairo is waiting for you. Good food, beautiful clothes, all the things that you've ever dreamt about. Good luck, Musa. Come back rich.
Musa said goodbye to his friend and got on the boat. 20 minutes later, the boat left. In 2 hours, he would be in Cairo for the first time. A new life was waiting. Musa closed his eyes and tried to imagine that great city.
Musa, where are you going with all those eggs?
Musa opened his eyes to see who was talking to him. It was Khaled, the baker's son. He was going to Cairo that day to sell his father's cakes there.
I'm going to Cairo to sell these eggs,
replied Musa.
Ah, like me. I take these cakes to Cairo 3 times a week,
said Khaled.
Well, no, not really. I'm not going to sell eggs all my life, you know. I'm going to be much more than that.
What are you going to do?
Khaled looked interested. A man and his wife from their home village also looked at Musa, waiting to hear his answer. Musa was very happy to tell them about his dreams.
Well, first I'm going to sell these eggs in the market. I bought them from Hafsa, so I'll get good money for them.
Hafsa's eggs are the best in the village,
said Khaled.
That's true,
said the man and his wife.
Then I'm going to buy some beautiful material,
said Musa. Some of the women sitting near looked at Musa when he said this.
And what material is that?
Ah, the finest material that you can imagine. There are materials in Cairo that you can't find anywhere else. Materials that are made with really beautiful colors. I can't even tell you their names.
The women looked at each other. One of them closed her eyes, trying to imagine those colors.
I'll come back to our village and sell this material,
said Musa.
All the women will want to buy some to make new clothes. so I'll make more money.
Now, all the women in the boat were listening to Musa.
With this money, I'll buy a ewe and give her the best food to eat.
When he said that, a group of men looked at him.
A ewe is a good animal to buy. You must give her apples sometimes.
Carrots are better,
said another man in the group.
My ewe will eat both apples and carrots. Later, she'll have 2 lambs. I'll sell the lambs and their mother, and then do you know what I'll buy?
Now, everyone in the boat was listening to Musa.
A cow?
a boat,
A camel? No, a water buffalo.
said Musa in a loud voice.
Ah, yes, I see. From 200 eggs to a water buffalo. That's good business.
Said Khaled.
Very good business.
They all said. Musa stood up excitedly.
When a water buffalo has a calf, I'll have 2 water buffaloes to sell. And after I sell them, I'll be rich. And when I'm rich, I'll have a servant to work for me. All day I'll shout at him, "Do this, do that, quickly, run!" And if he's slow, I'll give him a big kick, like this.
With that, Musa kicked the basket of eggs, and it fell off the boat into the waters of the Nile. 200 eggs went to the bottom of the river, and Musa was left with nothing, only his dreams.
The Alchemist, a tale from Burma. Once there was an old man in Burma who had a daughter. He was very happy when she married a nice young man who came from a good family. At first, everything went well. After a little while, there was a problem. The young husband wanted to be an alchemist. He spent all his time trying to turn dirt into gold. He was sure that this way they could one day be rich without working. Night and day he dreamt of finding the secret of the alchemists. He also spent a lot of money trying to find a way to make his dream come true. After some months like this, there was very little money. The young wife decided to talk to her husband.
Husband, why don't you try to find a job? Trying to make us rich fast has left us with no money at all,
she said to him one day.
But can't you see that I'm very near to finding the secret?
He replied.
When I know how to turn dirt into gold, we'll be richer than you can ever imagine.
Perhaps it was true that he was always very near to finding the secret, but he never found it. After many weeks, life became more and more difficult. Sometimes there were days when there was no money for food in the house. So the young wife went to talk to her father. The father was surprised to hear that his son-in-law wanted to be an alchemist. He asked to speak to the young man the next day.
My daughter has told me about your plans.
he said to his son-in-law.
When I was young, I too wanted to be an alchemist.
The younger man was very happy. Here, at last, was someone who could understand his dream. The father-in-law asked about the young man's work, and the two of them started talking about different ways of trying to turn dirt into gold. After 2 hours talking about the things that an alchemist must do, the old man jumped to his feet.
You've done everything that I did when I was a young man,
he shouted.
I'm sure you're very near to finding the great secret. But you need one more special thing to change dirt into gold. And I only learned about this a few days ago.
One more special thing?
Asked the son-in-law. He found talking with the old man more and more interesting.
It's a lot of work, and I can't do it now.
I can do it, father-in-law,
shouted the young man.
Perhaps you can,
said the old man. His voice was suddenly quiet.
Listen carefully. The special thing is a silver powder that grows on the back of the leaves of the banana plant. This is a magic powder.
Magic powder?
Asked the son-in-law.
What do you mean?
Listen,
replied the older man.
To get this powder, you must plant bananas. Lots of bananas. And you must plant them yourself. While you plant each banana seed, you must say special magic words. Then, when the plant grows, you'll see the magic silver powder on the leaves.
How much magic powder do we need?
The young man asked at once, very interestedly.
1 kilogram,
the old man replied.
1 kilogram? We'll need hundreds of banana plants for that.
Yes,
said the old man.
And that's why I can't do the work myself, I'm afraid.
Don't worry, I'll do it.
And so the old man taught his son-in-law the magic words and gave him enough money to start planting the bananas. The next day, the young man bought a field. He planted the banana seeds just as the old man told him to do. He quietly said the magic words, while each seed went into the ground. Each day he looked carefully at the little plants. He made sure that there were no banana flies on them. When the bananas came, he carefully took the silver powder off the banana leaves and put it into a special bag. The banana plants grew quickly, and the young man worked hard every day. The only problem was that on each plant there was very little silver powder. So the young man had to buy more fields and plant more bananas. It took 7 years. But at last, the young man had 1 kilogram of silver powder. He ran to his father-in-law's house.
I've got enough magic powder,
he shouted.
Wonderful,
replied the old man.
Now I can show you how to turn dirt into gold. But first, your wife must come here. We need her too.
When she arrived, the old man asked his daughter,
While your husband was getting the banana powder, What did you do with the bananas?
I sold them in the market,
the daughter said.
We've lived on that money for these 7 years.
Did you save any money?
Asked the father.
Yes,
she replied.
Can I see it?
Asked the old man. So his daughter hurried home and came back with 10 big bags. The old man opened them and saw that they were full of gold. He took all the coins out of one of the bags and put them on the floor. Then he took the banana powder and put it next to the gold.
You see,
he said, turning to his son-in-law.
You've changed dirt into gold. So you are an alchemist in a way, after all. And what's more, you're now a very rich man. The Thief of Smells. A Tale from America. There was once a baker who had a shop in a small town in America. This baker was not a very kind man. He never gave his customers any more bread than necessary for their money, and he never smiled. But he was a very good baker. His bread was the softest bread that you could imagine. Sometimes customers paid for their bread and started eating it there in the shop. His cakes, his cakes were really delicious. People came to his shop from all over town. When they walked down the street, they smelled the baker's wonderful bread and his delicious cakes, and they walked right into his shop. But not everyone came inside. Some people just stood outside the shop smelling and looking in through the windows. The baker didn't like this.
Their stomachs are full of the smell of my bread. I'm giving them a free lunch, and I get nothing for my hard work,
he said to himself.
Perhaps there's some way to put those delicious smells in bottles.
One winter morning, very early, the baker was in his shop, making bread. He wasn't singing happily while he worked. He was complaining to himself about getting up early, about the cold weather, and about anything that came into his head. In the middle of all this, he looked up and saw someone looking in through the window. It was a young man wearing an old coat. He was looking at the baker's bread, and he was hungry. He was smelling the fresh bread and smiling. When the baker saw him, he felt very angry.
That thief outside my shop has a stomach full of the smell of my bread. It's a free breakfast. I get nothing for my hard work, while he steals my smells.
The man didn't move. He just stood there, closed his eyes, and smelt the fresh bread happily. The baker was really angry now. He walked across the shop, opened the door, and shouted at the man,
"Pay me!"
Pay you for what?
asked the young man in great surprise.
For the smells that you've stolen,
replied the baker.
But I've stolen nothing. I'm only smelling the air. Air is free,
said the hungry young man.
It's not free when it's full of the smells from my shop. Pay me now, or I'll call the police.
When the young man didn't pay, the baker took him by the coat and pulled him through the snow to the judge's house. He knocked on the door. After a long time, the judge opened the door in his nightclothes. He looked at the baker and the hungry young man standing outside in the street. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. What could be so important so early in the day?
This man is a thief. He stole the smells from my shop,
said the baker. The judge was surprised, but all he said was, "Come in and tell me your story. But first, give me time to dress myself." After a few minutes, he came back and he took them inside. They all sat down together around a large table. "All right. Tell me everything. Baker, you start," said the judge. He listened quietly. First, the baker told him all about the hungry man who stole all his smells. The judge went on listening. Then the young man told him that air was free and that any man could have as much as he wanted. When they finished telling their stories, the judge was silent for a few minutes. The baker started telling him again of how the other man took all his smells without paying. "Stop. Be quiet. I've decided what we'll do. Young man, do you have any money?" The young man put his hand in his pocket and took out a few coins. He showed them to the judge and said,
"Sir, this is all the money that I have in the world."
"Give those coins to me," said the judge. The young man put them into the judge's hand. "I've listened carefully to both your stories. It's true that the smells were coming out of the baker's shop, and these smells belonged to the baker. And it's also true that this young man took those smells without paying for them. And so I say that the young man has to pay the baker for the smells that he took." The baker smiled, perhaps for the very first time in his life. He held out his hand at once for the money, but the judge didn't give him the coins. "Baker, listen and listen carefully," he said. He shook the coins in his hands, and they clinked together. "That can pay for the smells."
Give me my coins, sir,
said the baker, not smiling anymore. "No. I've decided that the sound of money is the best way to pay for the smell of bread." And with that, he gave the coins back to the poor young man and told him to go home.
Good luck or bad luck? A tale from China. A long time ago, an old man lived in a small village in the mountains, in the middle of China. He had a son that he loved very much, but this son was a student in a city very far from his father's village. And so the old man lived and worked alone. Every day he worked for long hours on his farm. There was always a lot to do there. He was a kind, friendly man, and all the people in the village liked him. They knew that the old farmer needed the help of his son, a strong young man who was not afraid of hard work. But the old farmer never complained. The villagers often came over to the old man's house and told him how sorry they were that his son was not there to help him.
When will your son come back home?
It's bad luck for you to live alone, so far away from your only son,
they said. But the old farmer always replied in the same words.
Bad luck or good luck? Who knows?
One day, the old man's son came back to the village. The people in the village were very happy for the old man, and they all came to his house.
Oh, isn't this good news? Now that your son has come back, your house will be full of good luck again,
they said. But the old farmer only smiled and replied,
Good luck or bad luck? Who knows?
People knew that the farmer was a man who used few words. They didn't ask him what he meant when he said things like this. Life was hard in the village, and nearly everybody there was poor. But the old farmer and his son were not as poor as some others. They had a horse, and on a farm a horse can do the work of 4 men. But one morning, the farmer's son left the stable door open, and the horse ran away. The son felt terrible.
What have I done? Work on the farm without a horse will be really hard. What will we do now?
He asked his father. And the people of the village again felt sorry for the old farmer and his son.
This is very bad luck,
they all said. But again, the old farmer smiled quietly. He didn't look worried about the horse.
Bad luck or good luck? Who knows?
That afternoon, some people in the village thought that they saw the old man's horse running across the hills near the farm. So that evening, the son went to look for it. After a few hours, he found their horse quietly eating grass next to a wild horse. The son was able to bring both horses back to his father's farm. When the people of the village heard this news, they were very happy for the farmer.
First, you had 1 horse.
Then you had no horse.
Now you have 2 horses.
They shouted happily.
Your good luck has come back again.
But the old farmer just smiled his quiet smile and said,
Good luck or bad luck? Who knows?
The son liked the new horse very much, and he decided to tame it.
Be careful, son. You've lived in the city for many years. You don't know very much about taming wild horses,
said the old farmer worriedly.
Don't worry, father. I know what I'm doing,
replied the son.
When I've tamed this horse, we'll have 2 horses to help us on the farm, and life will be better.
But the next day, the old man's son fell from the wild horse's back to the ground and broke his leg. Now this was a big problem. A man with a bad leg needs to eat, but cannot work. Once again, the people of the village
came to the farmer's house to say how sorry they were.
First, your son was in the city, and there was no one to help you.
Then your son came back to help you.
Now your son has broken his leg, and you must help him. Your bad luck has come back,
They said. Once again, the father smiled quietly and replied,
Bad luck or good luck? Who knows?
Some of the villagers were surprised to hear this. Where was the good luck in breaking your leg? At that time in China, there was a long and terrible war between the east and west of the country. Every week, hundreds of young men died in this war. One day, some soldiers arrived in the village. They were looking for more men to fight with them. All the young men in the village had to become soldiers in the army and leave for the war. Their families cried when they said goodbye. They knew that many of these young men would be dead in a few days. But the soldiers left the old farmer's son behind. What good to an army was a soldier with a bad leg? Now the villagers understood the old farmer's words. They went to see him.
Your son didn't have to go with the soldiers because he broke his leg.
Your good luck has come back again.
Good luck or bad luck? Who knows?
Once upon a time, there lived a judge who was famous for his intelligence and integrity. His name was Sherlock. He had been able to solve the most complicated cases, and he was really admired by everyone. Sherlock was wandering around with his two guards. They heard the weeping sound of a person. Sherlock was really surprised hearing these voices. It was Travis, a seller.
How could I be so foolish like that? If only I had not fallen asleep, my money bag wouldn't have gone. How can I get the money to cure Mom?
Sherlock and the guards went there, and they saw poor Travis was sadly sitting in the middle of the road, beside a big rock. Sherlock asked,
Who are you? And why are you sitting here? I am Travis, a poor olive oil seller.
Travis said about his life.
I live with my mom, who has been sick all year every day. I make fragrant batches of olive oil and sell them at the market. My family's life depends on the money I make from selling olive oil.
He continued.
This morning, I went to the market to sell olive oil, as usual, and luckily I earned a good amount of money. If I borrow a little more money, I would have enough to cure my mom. So I ran everywhere to borrow. Finally I had enough, and put it in a large money bag. Thank you, sir. I will return your money soon. On my way back home, I felt very tired after a long day of work. So I sat by this rock to take a quick nap.
Travis sat leaning against a large rock, then laid his head back on the rock and slept. Later, Travis slowly opened his eyes. He was shocked and panicked. He looked around to search the money bag.
But when I woke up, I realized that the money bag was gone. I couldn't find it anywhere, so I sat sadly, and luckily reached your attention. Please help me get that money back. It's all I have. I would be very grateful to you.
Sherlock thought. Then he nodded and said,
If that is the case, someone must have probably come here. and taken the money back from you while you were asleep. It's all right, I promise to investigate this case for you.
The judge used a magnifying glass to observe and look for traces around. However, it seemed that Sherlock had failed.
It's too strange. I haven't been able to find any trace around here. It seems that the thief has completely disappeared. Are you sure that no one else has witnessed this incident?
Travis nodded and said,
Yes. After I woke up, no one has appeared.
Sherlock asked again.
Do you suspect anyone?
Travis reflected and shook his head, sadly saying,
I don't dare to suspect anyone. Just blame me for being too stupid. What a mystery. Well, everything is getting more interesting. Sorry. Indeed, I made it difficult for you. Because I have no witness.
Sherlock interrupted, laughing, and said,
Who told you there has been no witness? This rock has been by your side from the beginning to end of the case. It is the most important witness. This rock. But sir, how can it be a witness?
Sherlock smiled mysteriously.
You'll see.
Smiling mysteriously, Sherlock commanded the guards to carry the big rock back to the court. Then the young judge immediately had it proclaimed throughout the village that he would open an interrogation of a rock, because it was suspected of stealing money from poor Travis. This news spread very quickly. Everyone in the area was talking about this. This was partly because everyone knew Travis as a kind and dutiful guy who unfortunately lost his money bag. However, it was mostly because the people were all curious. They all wanted to know how Sherlock could interrogate a rock. Two people were talking to each other. Really? The judge would question a rock?
Until now I've never heard of anyone do such a stupid thing.
What happened to our smart judge Sherlock today? How could a rock talk? So with great curiosity all the citizens gathered together to Sherlock's home, looking forward to seeing this unique interrogation. This news also reached Zion. He was Travis's neighbor, who was a greedy and cunning man. No one knew that he was the one who had stolen Travis's bag and had walked away smoothly. Zion held a large money bag in his hand and said to himself,
Perfect. I didn't leave any trace. Without a witness, who would believe that? Stupid Travis. No judge would help him. Not even the wise Sherlock. Just blame him for being too negligent.
However, when he heard that Sherlock had accepted to investigate the case and summoned the rock for questioning, Zion began to worry. He went back and forth clasping his hands. Worried, he thought,
Interrogate the rock. I have never heard about this before. How could a rock say anything? Wait. Who knows what if it can really talk?
Zion recalls.
That's right, only the rock saw the whole case. From the moment I had appeared until the moment I stole the money bag and ran away.
Then he thought,
if it really denounces me, what should I do? It's better to go over there and see how he will interrogate the rock.
So Zion also went to the court to see the interrogation of the rock. Outside the door all the people were stopped by guards. No one was allowed to go inside. Everyone was very curious about the harsh sounds inside the court. They were extremely excited. They huddled together to hear the voices inside the court.
Stubborn rock, do you confess or not? Was it you who stole the money back from Travis? Or someone else?
Of course the rock remained inert. Sherlock's angry voice echoed.
The stick is broken again. This rock is so stubborn. I broke 3 sticks and it still hasn't said a word.
Inside the court, Sherlock angrily pointed at the rock and shouted,
I do not believe that I can get anything from you. You will definitely have to confess. Unless you can't speak.
The rock remained inert. The people heard Sherlock's screams. They burst into laughter. And were more and more curious. Judge is really foolish today.
I really want to go inside and see how he's interrogating the rock.
Suddenly the door was opened. Sherlock appeared calmly in front of everyone. He asked loudly,
Why are all of you so noisy?
The guards replied,
Sir, the people all want to come inside and see you interrogating that rock.
Sherlock looked at the crowd in front of him. They looked very eager, nodding furiously. One citizen said,
Yes, Judge. We all want to see you questioning the rock.
Sherlock nodded thoughtfully, then said,
All right. Interrogating without the audience is very boring anyway. I allow everyone to enter. But on one condition.
Sherlock placed a large pan of water on the table and said,
Anyone who wants to see me must pay me a coin here. It can be considered as a fee for all of you to watch me interrogating that rock. 1 coin is nothing when you get to see a case as unique as this.
Everyone happily dropped the coin into the basin and joyfully entered the court. Soon the basin was full of coins. Sherlock was still standing beside the sink. He carefully observed every piece of change in the water of the basin. Finally it was Zion's turn like everyone else. He dropped the coin into the basin. Immediately bubbles of oil emerged. And olive oil began to spread very quickly on the surface of the water. It was exactly the thing that Sherlock had been waiting for. And he immediately called the guards.
Guards! Quickly arrest this guy for me. Sir, what did I do? Why are you arresting me? You still want to deny it? You are the one who stole Travis's bag. In this area Travis is the only one who sells olive oil. Therefore only his money can get olive oil from his hands. However, the coin you dropped into the water basin was covered with olive oil. And it is still spreading. That proves you are the culprit who took Travis's money bag. Do you have anything to say other than the confession? That is Sign. My neighbor. So it was you.
Sherlock ordered the guards to search all over Zion. And they discovered Travis's bag. The coins inside were still covered with olive oil at that time. Zion could not deny it anymore.
Sir, I was so foolish. Please forgive me. Travis, I'm sorry. My greed blinded me, please help me. Today, like every other day, I went to the forest to cut wood all day. When I got back I saw Travis soundly asleep by the rock. Suddenly his money bag slipped off and fell to the ground. I saw the gold and silver coins inside. I could not hold back my greed. After looking around and seeing no one else, I gently took his pouch and left quickly. I thought that no one would see what I had done. But when I heard you were investigating the rock, I was shocked and came here to check the situation. I didn't expect that was just my trap. The rock cannot say anything. You have been easily trapped. Now let's put him in jail and wait for the trial.
The guards quickly led Zion to a dungeon.
This case is closed. We have caught the culprit and got back the money for Travis. And about the money that you all contributed, I'm going to give it to Travis, so he can cure his old mother. A little money from each of us can help him to overcome his difficulties. Do you guys agree?
People finally understood the intention of the kind-hearted judge, and all happily agreed. Each person only contributed a small coin, but it could be combined into a large amount of money for Travis. Sherlock returned the pocket to Travis, and gave him the amount of money which was raised by everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks everyone.
Once upon a time in a faraway kingdom, there lived a talented and wise magician, named Apollo, who lived on a majestic mountain. He had a young student named Barney, who was an extremely lazy and playful boy.
Right. Run. Run away.
Goodness. My precious medicinal plants.
Whenever his master asked him for help, he would immediately try to get away from it.
Barney. Go into the woods to cut down a bundle of firewood, and bring back to me.
Master, I'm going through so much pain, so I can't go far at all. Also, this is out of my duty, isn't it?
All right. I will have the trees cut. What you need to do is fetch the water in the garden.
I have filled only 2 barrels of water, but I feel tired to death. It's time to take a rest under this tree.
Barney forgot all his works, and slept like a log under the tree. When Apollo came back, he felt really discontented, and decided to teach Barney a lesson. Pretending to be contrite, and let everything pass, Barney put all his master's lessons behind. Then he kept behaving like that for many times, which made the magician very upset. Until a spring afternoon, when many trees and flowers had come into bloom, Barney was engrossed in playing in a garden in the mountain. He looked away and saw beautiful trees. He saw that the shades of delicious and ripe berries emitted a brilliant red.
I want to taste them. It is late afternoon, and the route is also very far away. Maybe I should go home and ask for my master's permission first. Then I might prepare to set out early tomorrow. Master, by tomorrow, could you let me go to the forest under the mountain to gather some berries?
Don't ever think about it. There is a witch taking refuge in that forest. If you unluckily met her, you would be hexed and detained for the rest of your life.
Maybe my master has been so senile that his thoughts have become erratic or illogical. But what if it's not true? I think that someone made up that story. Tomorrow, when I come back in the evening, you will know it's a complete fabrication.
This boy is so rebellious. No matter what I say, he will still set out tomorrow. Okay, as my amulets will protect him, I will teach him a lesson this time. Okay. I agree to let you go. Keep these 3 amulets if there is any danger on the way. They can save your life.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
The next morning, Barney crossed a long distance to reach that beautiful forest. Being engrossed in the beautiful forest, and gathering delicious wild red berries, he forgot the way back. Only when it's already dark, Barney realized in panic that he had lost his way.
I got lost. This is so scary here at night. What would happen if the witch appeared right now?
Ah, hello, young man.
Who is that?
He saw a beautiful woman with a gentle and kind appearance smiling at him. She smiled and moved toward Barney. Don't be scared. I live in this forest. What are you doing here at night?
I came here to pick wild fruits. However, I was engrossed in playing. I forgot the way to get back. And then got stuck here.
Poor you. Let's come to my house to take rest and eat something.
How lucky I am to meet such a kind and gentle woman. Thank you so much.
However, Barney did not know that she was the cruel witch disguising herself as a beautiful woman, bringing him to her house. The witch fed Barney the food with sleeping medication inside to make him fall asleep. Poor little lamb. How on earth could he think that I'm a kind lady? When the witch left, the 3 amulets in his body glowed to counteract the sleeping medication's effect. When Barney woke up, he found himself in a small room.
Where am I? Where is the woman? Oh, why does my head ache in the way like this?
Feeling so strange, he went around the house to look for the old woman. When he reached a room with the light on, he cracked open the door slightly and looked inside, seeing the woman nowhere. He just saw a witch making strange potions. How lucky I am today to catch such a healthy prey. Tomorrow is the full moon day. It's time to test the portion I've prepared for so long. He will be the first one to test it.
So she is a witch. I have to escape from here now.
Who's that? You can't escape me. She caught Barney immediately. So it's you. How could you wake up so quickly?
Are you a witch?
Probably because my sleeping medications are not strong enough. You're right. I'm Sani, the witch. You can never escape from here. The witch imprisoned Barney in the other room and locked it carefully at midnight while Sani was guarding outside. She saw the light was still on. Have you slept yet?
I'm so scared. So I can't sleep.
Boy, try to make your last night count. Time flew. Barney was really frightened and regretful.
It's all my fault. I disobeyed my master when going to the forest, and don't know how to get back. So now I am trapped by the cruel witch. If only I had listened to his advice. Wait. What about Master's 3 amulets? Please fake my voice to answer the witch.
The amulet lighted up, and Barney's wish had been fulfilled. So happy he was. He hurriedly found a way to climb up to the roof, and escaped in the night. Meanwhile, the witch was still watching outside. Seeing that the light in the room was still on, she asked suspiciously again. Boy, are you still there? Why are you not sleeping?
I'm so scared, so I can't sleep.
Hearing that, the witch was relieved. Then she slept until dawn. That all night Barney had been wandering to find the way to get out. It was not until dawn that he escaped the forest. Then he rushed to the mountain without daring to take a rest. Finally he reached home and thanked his master.
Thank you, master. Your amulet saved my life. I have learned my lesson.
Barney also received a lesson for himself. He was no longer lazy and selfish. Barney started listening to his master's words. Listening to the right advice is always a good thing, isn't it? This story is about a farmer and his magic box. In a faraway village lived a farmer named Lucky. Lucky was a good and wise man. He owned a few acres of land. Though he was a good farmer, his land never produced any crops, while other farmers' land were full of crops. Lucky used to plow but his farm was always barren.
Why do you plow every day? This land is not giving you a single crop since years. Now you should sell this land and buy a good land somewhere else. Oh, my brother, this land belongs to my ancestors. They used to farm on this very soil. I must be doing something wrong. I will keep trying. I wish you all the best, brother.
Lucky did not want to give away his land at any cost. He spent days without food. He ate fruits to survive. Every day he went and plowed.
I will plow until I find out why my land does not yield crops.
Lucky plowed and plowed.
I am so tired.
Lucky plowed the entire field. It was late afternoon when he finally thought of resting. Lucky was now too hungry to carry on. He was about to stop plowing when his spade hit something deep into the ground.
What is this sound? Like some kind of metal. Oh! What a huge box! That's strange. Who would bury a metal box so deep in a field? This is useless.
Lucky was angry for having wasted his energy over nothing. He threw his spade into the metal box and sat in the shade of the tree.
I think I must now sell this land. I cannot always stay hungry. This land will never give me anything.
Lucky rested under the shade eating the fruits he had bought for himself. They were far less compared to the hunger Lucky felt. He sat there for over an hour, thinking about his land and feeling sorry. He knew he had to give the land away. He had no choice.
I have to be strong now. This ancestral land has to be given away. I must go home before it gets dark.
As Lucky walked back to the box to take his spade, he was shocked to see what had happened.
What? Who kept this here? I was here the whole time.
Lucky found that the box now had 100 spade just like the one he had. He could not tell which spade belonged to him.
How can this be possible? Is this a magic box? Let me try something.
Lucky took 100 spades out and kept a single apple in the box. He could not believe. In minutes that single apple was now 100 apples.
This indeed is a magic box. I cannot believe this. Let me take this box home.
Lucky took the box home. And as he walked home, he thought about other things he could put in the box.
Firstly, let me put an egg. I am very hungry and have only been eating very little fruit.
Lucky quickly went to the market and spent all his savings to buy one single egg. He then placed that egg in the box. In no time the box was full of eggs. Lucky was very happy as he cooked 2 eggs for himself.
I have never tasted anything like this. But what do I do with the other 98 eggs? Oh! I can sell these eggs and make money.
Lucky then realized that the box can not only give him food to eat but can also help him earn. After selling all the eggs, Lucky used the box for different things. When he needed cloth he would place a small piece of cloth. Box would give cloth to make dresses for at least 15 people. If he needed shirts he would place a stitched shirt in the box and the box would give up 100 shirts. In this way Lucky started putting grains, fruits, cloth and even spices inside the box. The box kept giving many things. The villagers wondered about the farmer's success. However, nobody could discover the truth. Lucky always hid his box well covered with a cloth. One day Lucky left his box open. Accidentally a dog jumped inside the house and sat inside the box. Suddenly there were 100 dogs jumping out of the box. There were dogs everywhere.
Oh! Why didn't I put a dead fish instead? How will I catch so many dogs?
One dog started barking.
Go away all of you.
Lucky was scared.
My house has become a puddle. What do I do?
He then ran out of his house. All the dogs followed him. The villagers were surprised to see so many dogs run out of Lucky's house.
So many dogs. I must use this box very wisely.
But Lucky had not realized that a king's soldier was listening to him. He heard about the box and ran to the king to explain the entire story.
So many dogs from a single box. How is this possible? This must be a magic box. Bring Lucky and the box here immediately. That box belongs in the treasury.
Lucky knew why the king had asked him to get the box.
The king is a greedy man. Maybe he wants all the wealth only for himself.
Bring me the box. This is a big box. But, how can this box produce so many dogs? Let me see what is inside the box.
Oh no! Don't do that!
But it was too late. As the king leaned in, he slips and fell inside the box. Now there are 100 kings climbing out of the box. Before anybody can say anything, they all started fighting with each other.
The throne is mine. No, it's mine. I am the king of this kingdom.
The hall was full of kings. The soldiers cannot tell their true king, and within minutes that killed each other. The palace grieved, for now the kingdom had no one to rule. Lucky soon realized how dangerous the box is. He ran towards the box, picked it up and ran to his farm, and buried it deep so that no one can touch it. Lucky was sad to have lost his magic box, but Lucky now had a land which grew crops. He started farming and lived a satisfied life.
Time had flown by quickly. Every year Zoya would make New Year resolutions, but every year she would fail to achieve them. This year she thought to make a list that was easy to accomplish, but yet again, the year was about to come to an end, only a few hours left, and yet she had not been able to complete a single thing on the list. With the horrible day she had at work and the bad luck she got when she arrived only 2 minutes late at the bus stop, she felt flaky and depressed for many reasons. Adding to her sadness was the fact that she was unable to spend the holidays with her parents, as she had a lot of work piled up. She thought to look at the list one last time. Maybe she would be able to complete at least one small thing from the list, which would aid her in feeling contented and satisfied. Zoya started to cross off everything one by one. Reaching at the last, she abruptly stopped. In small letters it had been written, "Help a person in need." Zoya gazed at the words for a long time, thinking that maybe she could finish this goal. She strained her head hard, but it kept coming up blank. Pacing in the living room, thinking that maybe she could help at the homeless shelter. But it was snowing heavily and the news said it would take at least 4 hours before clearing up. No one in her neighbor would be needing anything at this moment. She could have dinner with the lonely lady down by the street, but Zoya did not like her presence because of the fact that she always smelled like stale fish. Plopping on the couch, with a sigh, she turned the TV on. Skipping through channels, she found nothing entertaining. Abruptly, with a loud noise bursting through the house, Zoya jumped in terror, looking around, but suddenly the electricity went out. Her vision became black as the night. Not even the moon aiding her in sight. The sudden darkness scared her to the core. She roamed her hands, in search for her phone, and was very glad to feel it underneath the cushion behind her. Zoya turned on the torch of her phone but instantly regretted the action, as there was a 6-foot-tall man standing in front of her, with a black suit on his body that only showed his icy blue eyes. a sharp knife in his hand. With Zoya's heart beating rapidly and eyes popping out of her head, she started to scream, but before she could utter a single sound, the intruder tackled her onto the sofa and put his hand on Zoya's mouth. With a deep voice he said,
"I'll put this knife in your throat if you utter a single sound."
Once the intruder was sure that Zoya was not going to scream, he asked,
"If I remove my hand from your mouth, will you scream?"
Weakly, Zoya nodded her head to say no. The intruder removed his hand slowly and released his grip on her hands.
"No one has to get hurt, just give me what I need."
Zoya looked fragile and petrified. Her eyes became watery and in a feeble voice asked, "What do you want from me?" The man turned the light on. The man looked inquisitively around the house. His eye got glued on the fridge in the kitchen. He stood in front of the fridge and opened it gently. His eyes bulged after seeing all the food. Took out a plastic bag from his jacket and began to fill it up. From behind, Zoya was watching intensely. She was surprised to see the actions of the intruder. Out of all the things in the house, why would he open the fridge? Confused by his activities, she got up quietly and strolled towards him. However, the wooden floor under her screeched by her footsteps. She stopped sharply.
"Sit back down."
The man shouted, turning his head with a snap. Zoya followed the instructions promptly, her heart beating at the speed of light. She didn't know what to do. She wanted to call the police but knew what the consequences would be. All she could do was sit, without making a sound. After filling the bag with food, the man turned to find Zoya sitting on the couch, looking as if she was about to pass out. The man felt bad for what he was doing. He looked at Zoya, feeling horrible. She backed away in terror, saying, "Please take whatever you want, just don't hurt me." The man softened his look and apologized to her. Zoya, being surprised by the intruder's words, suddenly looked at him with eyes wide open. The man, in a gentle and remorseful tone, said,
"I am sorry, I know I should not be doing this, but I don't have any other choice. My wife is in the hospital suffering from cancer. I don't have any money for her treatments."
The man's voice quivered but completed his words.
"My children are at home crying from hunger. I do not have a choice. I am sorry."
With this, the man ran outside and seemed to disappear into thin air. Zoya was shocked, her mind having a million thoughts at once. On one hand she felt angry towards the man, who had broken into her home, but also felt sympathetic to the man. Not knowing what to feel, she went to bed. Even though she felt unpleasant and felt a little bit satisfied due to the event, a thought occurred in her head. Even though it was unintentional, I was able to accomplish one goal from my list. With this last thought she went to sleep.